Welcome to another episode of the Man City podcast. I'm your host, Rob Pollard. On this edition, I'm talking to one of this club's most unique and revered figures, Francis Lee.
Over it goes for Bell. And Lee! What a magnificent goal by Francis Lee!
Francis is considered one of the best players we've ever had. He sits 7th on the list of all-time leading goal scorers. He won every domestic trophy and was part of the side that won our only European honour to date, the 1970 European Cup Winners' Cup. He then returned in 1994 as chairman, taking over from Peter Swales for what was a difficult and turbulent period. Francis invited me to his house in Portugal and we had a full and frank discussion about his association with the club. It was the best period of your career, your playing career, when you were at City. Joe Mercer paid a club record £60,000. Tell me about what it was like when you got the phone call to say that City were interested and that Joe Mercer was interested in taking you as a player.
He rang me up 2 days before and said, I'm going to try and sign you. He said, are you okay for coming? You know, I said, yeah, I'm fine, because I'd finished my contract with Bolton. I was playing on a week-to-week basis with them, even though I was the leading goal scorer. Early in the year, I had about 12 goals by the end of September. So I said, no, I'm in dispute with them, and no doubt they will be selling me to somebody. So he then rang me back in another 2 days, and he said to the Bolton manager, Bill Ridding, will you accept £60,000? He said, well, I suppose so. The next thing was my debut against Wolverhampton, and I hadn't played for about 2-3 weeks. I was training on my own, and but I didn't really bother, you know. I kept myself reasonably fit, and we played and we won 2-0 at Main Road, and I knew straight away. I thought, these are not bad players. They're easy to slot in with, you know. I always felt that if I was playing with good players, I could fit in with them, you know, easily, you know.
Joe Mercer described you as the final piece of the jigsaw. I mean, I think he sees your transfer as kind of, you know, that final catalyst to success. Is that how you see it?
They played me wide on the wing, because it didn't really bother me. I could play right wing, left wing. I could play centre forward. I could play support striker. I was never really a deep line midfield player. I always wanted him in the action. So it didn't really matter to me. You know, which position I played, I could enjoy. You know.
What was he like as a man and as a manager, Joe Mercer? I mean, he'd got City promoted, hadn't he, in 66, and then to win the league by 68.
Well, yeah, but I think that you have to take... Joe ran the club from a managerial point of view, but the coaching side of it was done by Malcolm Allison, who was like the Pep Guardiola of his era.
Yeah.
When I first went there, the training was unbelievably hard. You know, we had international runners, Derek Ibbotson and Joel Lancaster and Danny Ehrman, trainers on the track, for one for distance running, one for track work, you know, the 200 metres and 100 metres, and then for the sharp stuff, Danny Ehrman was a sprinter for Great Britain. And we trained really, really hard, plus weights on a Wednesday afternoon, you know, and we were a very, very fit side, and that's what really made us, apart from being good footballers, because we had some good, very, very good footballers in the team. We were very fit and very strong.
If you look at your record, when City needed you on the big days, you were always there to deliver. What do you think that is about your mentality?
I wanted to be a star. I wanted to be on the day. I wanted to make sure that everybody remembered me playing that day, because it was important.
That Cup Winners' Cup as well is City's only European Cup. What's your memories of that night and the journey home and that kind of thing? I
can't remember much of the journey home. But the match was it was played in torrential rain, but it was a good game, and it was a fast game, and the Polish team were a very good team as well. We played them again the year after and got to the semi-final of the European Cup Winners' Cup, and then we got knocked out with Chelsea because we got no players. We had so many people injured. We actually got a good result at Stamford Bridge, then lost the match at Main Road, but there's only about 3 or 4 of those regulars in the team, you know. But no, that was a good game against a good team, and we were the best team on the day. And if you go back and think about the great German manager Helmut Schön, he saw us absolutely annihilate Schalke 04 in Germany and at Main Road. And he said, that's one of the best British sides I've ever seen. He said, they're unbelievable. And that's how good City were then, you know.
Were you top scorer every season that you were at City?
I think so, yeah. the thing is, I played with playing out of position. I curtailed my scoring activities because I was playing centre forward. I was playing with my back to the operation, the team, and everything was played into me. I held it up and laid it off and worked it from there. Whereas if I played my favourite position, which was alongside a support striker, like I did with Jeff Hurst for England, and I did for Wyn Davies when he was at Bolton. We bought Wyn Davies, and that season I think I scored 36 goals, playing off Wyn. So if I'd have played off him, off a big striker for most of my career, I would have scored a lot more goals. But I might not have created as many. My real position was a support striker, and I could play wide on either wing. I could move off the striker and play on the left wing and move on the right wing. You know.
So given that then, if you were to compare your style and the way that you played to a player who's played for City in sort of recent years, who do you think was who was most like you?
I think if you're looking at the current players, you'd think somewhere across between like Sergio or
Carlos Tevez.
Carlos Tevez, yeah. And Carlos Tevez.
You ended up leaving City in '74. How did that come about? Did you want to leave?
Well, my contract was about to expire, and they made Tony Book the manager, and he wanted to buy Ace at Hartford from West Brom, and I think it was about 200 grand or something like that, you know. And as usual, City had got no money. They had no money when I came, and they had no money when I went, you know. But they said that. If they wanted to sign Ace, they had to sell a player. So I was the obvious one because I'm out of contract, and they probably didn't want to give me a new contract with 2-3 years, something like that. So I knew that United wanted to sign me, and one or two other clubs. So then all of a sudden, Dave Mackay, he came on the phone to me and said, "I'd like you to come and play." He explained why, and he said, "I think if we can get the team playing away from home. We finished 6th in the league last year. We could win the championship." I thought, that's a bit of a long shot, that Dave. He said, "No, it's not." He said, "If we can get them playing away from home," he said, we could win it. And so I signed for Derby, and we did win the championship.
So who was the best player you played with? And I don't necessarily mean a City player, just England, Derby, Bolton, City, wherever. Who was the best?
I've been lucky to play with a lot of good players. You know, I mean, say if you played with the likes of Bobby Moore and Bobby Charlton for England, they were top class. They were proper international players. They were, you know, if you play First Division football or Premier League football, if you want to be a top class international, you've got to raise your game by about 25%. And Bobby Charlton and Bobby Moore could do that. Plus, you know, obviously Banksy, the goalkeeper, he was very good. But in club level, I was lucky to play with like Mike at City. He was tremendously consistent and aggressive and talkative. And Colin was a very, very good player. Neil Young was an underrated player. Not he wouldn't the guy who if it was like the retreat from Alamo, you wouldn't have Young in his side, you know. But he finished with some wonderful goals. And Tony Coleman on the left wing, he's just a little nuisance, but could play as well.
Just going back to Bobby Moore, a lot of people who talk about Bobby Moore, they kind of make the point that he never ever had to make sort of last ditch sliding tackles. That's because he read the game so well, presumably. I mean, is that what makes a great centre-half?
Yeah, good player, good defenders, right, like good strikers. They attract the ball, and Moro used to attract the ball. In the penalty area, somehow it always used to go to him, and he'd be the one who was clearing it, and it could be a muddy day, and he'd be the only one with white shorts on, and that type of thing, you know.
So when you do come back after your long period away, you come back in '94 as the chairman.
Mm-hmm. When I was training, I've been training racehorses for about 10 years, and I had a lot of fun doing that, and I enjoyed it. I should have stayed training racehorses. They were less trouble than footballers, you know. At least the horses didn't answer you back.
Yeah. So what made you want to come back? What made you? I
just thought it had got to the state where a lot of people have been pestering me, and it got to the stage where I thought it was possible. You know, and I thought there's a lot of fans out there. You know, and we have got a big fan base, but it's a local big fan base. And you know, and when we came back, we did a lot of promotion of the club, and we had to build the Kippax Street stand because we couldn't go into otherwise that side of the ground would have to be shut down until the stand was built. And the previous directors, led by Mr. Swales, had just built the Platt Lane stand. Well, they'd half built it because they got a grant to build a full one, but they only half built it. They didn't build it full size. And
is that because they couldn't afford to?
Yeah, and when I went there, after the takeover, all I did for the first 6 months was pay people who'd never been paid, contractors for that stand and things like that. But anyway, we had to get cracking on the Kippax Street stand, which we built, and it cost 16 million. And bear in mind that the last published figures for the turnover of the club before I went there as chairman was 4 million. When I left, the turnover for the club was 33 million. And we built a 16 million pound stand, but we had a break. We had a bit of luck. I was at the Premier League meeting with John Hall, Sir John Hall from Newcastle, and he said, "I think you're in for a good surprise." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Manchester have been trying to get the Olympic Games and share it with Liverpool," and he said, "It's not going to work," and anything like that. And he said, "But you are going to get the Commonwealth Games." He said, and I've heard on the strong information that Manchester City will be asked to play in the Commonwealth Stadium. He said, "But you'll have to give up your ground at Main Road eventually." I said, that won't be a problem. But it was a problem because a lot of people didn't want to leave Main Road. Because everybody had got their own little cubby hole here, and they always stood there, and they did the... But anyway, I went round to several of these supporters clubs and said on the show of hands, one of the questions they asked on the show of hands, if anybody is in favour of us having a better stadium than Manchester United, can put your hands up now. So everybody put their hands up. So I thought, unanimous, thank you very much. So the fans were for it, and so it lumbered on for another 2 or 3 years, and then eventually they started to build it, and it's proved to be an absolute fantastic success. To get a ground like that for 30 million. We sold Main Road for 30 million. And how we got 30 million for Main Road was, I don't know, but it wasn't a bad bit of business because it was only an housing site after all.
You did inherit a bit of a mess at City, didn't you? Certainly off the field. Contracts, long contracts, people unpaid, players on stupid money, on stupid lengths. How did you go about sifting through all that rubbish?
Right, it was so difficult, but the players were in impregnable positions because they just signed. Before I came, they just signed. Most of them had signed new contracts, So then they were happy, to just roll along merrily, And it was everything which was put in my path made things difficult. But every day there was a crisis. But every day we kept overtaking this crisis, and we kept, kept putting that away and sorting that out. And it happened for about 3 or 4 years. And in the end, I'd say, I just got completely fed up of everything, because it just got me down. I thought I was pretty resilient, but after 3 years of total aggravation, then it really got me down. And
I can imagine it was a hugely stressful time, not just for you, but for your family as well.
Yeah, it was difficult for my kids at school and everything like that, But anyway, I'm still here.
So you inherited Brian Horton was the manager at the time. He wasn't necessarily your man, but things did quite well at first. I mean, when you came in, City had been struggling a little bit, but Brian managed to steer the team to safety, and there was a couple of big, important transfers in there. Paul Walsh, Rosler, Beagrie came in. What are your memories? They made a real impact, didn't they? Those signings.
Yeah, we signed Walsh. He was a hell of a signing, and Mike Summerby can take some of the credit for that because he'd been to Liverpool and he saw Graham Souness, who was the manager of Liverpool. And Portsmouth had just been Liverpool, and he was chatting to Graham after the game, and he said, and Graham said to him, "Do you know, if it wasn't for the protocol here at Liverpool," he said because Walsh used to play for Liverpool, he said I would try and sign Walsh to bring him back. Mike told me, and so we made our inquiries. Yeah, he was available, so that's how we signed him, and we tried to sign Anders Limper, which that was a wonderful miss, Sometimes, when I met him, I didn't like the little chap, his eyes and everything. And I said to Brian afterwards, he said, "What do you think?" Because we were talking about it. I said, his agent kept pushing to see how much we were going to pay him and everything like that. I said, "But really, Brian," I said, "I don't think he's coming here." I said, you think he's just been here to test the water, see how much he can get? He's going somewhere else. So I got Dom, my driver, to follow him when he left the Stanlands Hotel. We've been having these chats, and he followed him to Liverpool, and they went to see Everton. So that's why we lost him. So Brian straight away said, if we can't have Limpar, see if we can get Beagrie. So that's how we got Peter Beagrie. So Peter Beagrie was a very good player for us. He wasn't too good on the far side when we knocked the Kippax down. There were no fans down that side. But on kicking the other way, he was fantastic.
Yeah, very exciting player to watch. Rosler as well. He was a bit of an unknown player, but he came in, hit the ground running, started scoring goals.
He came and we played him in a reserve match. We got permission. One of the agents who was very good and he helped us out quite a bit was Jerome Anderson, who did a lot of work with Arsenal. Brought some of the Arsenal players in. He put us in touch with him, and he came over and he played in the reserve team, and he played till half time. And Brian says, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, he's had the ball 22 times in the first half." And I said, "He's misplaced passes twice. He stuck 2 in the net, and the rest he passed it to a blue shirt. He's better than anything we got. We'll sign him." Yeah. So we signed him, and then Brian put him in the team to play at QPR on the Saturday, and he played really well. And then he was up and running after that. He did have an injury when he came, but he got over it, and eventually he did super for us, yeah.
Then, so City stay up that season, and the following season starts really well. I mean, there's some great football being played.
Yeah.
But the squad's a little on the small side, and I spoke to Brian Horton about this, and he basically feels that if he'd had a few more options, particularly in defence, and just a slightly bigger squad, maybe City could have maintained it over the full season. But the wheels sort of came off halfway through that season, didn't they?
Well, the problem was with the defence that Tony Coleman was struggling with a knee injury, because he was a very, very, very good goalkeeper. He got knee and shoulder problems, and out the number of games he should have played whilst I was there, he should have played about 120 games. He played about 20, again, which was bad luck. They brought the back pass rule in, but the goalies had to kick it, whilst Andy Dibble wasn't a bad goalkeeper, he was a shocking kicker. I remember one day at Newcastle, we'd done so well, and we were just 1 in front or something like that, and only 10 minutes ago, and he completely missed his kick, and somebody just walked it into the net, and I thought, oh. But that was the problems we got, And then he bought a season. Did he not buy Nicky Summerby?
Yeah, Nicky Summerby.
He bought Nicky, which was a good buy. And I think he bought 1 or 2 others. Good
width in the team, and an attacking team. It was
and good cross. Both wingers were good crossers, because the trouble was Niall Quinn was always injured because he had a cruciate knee injury, and I think he came back about the end of that season. Did we go to Blackburn and get a good result there?
We did. We beat Blackburn.
That was it, and I think it was about the 4th or 5th games that Niall Quinn came back, and. I remember old Jack Walker, the chairman of Blackburn, because they were going to win the league and everything like that. He said to me, "Francis, do you want to have a bet now?" I said, "No." I said, "I've got more brains than that." I said, "You're going to win the league championship, the Premier League." I said, "And we are just happy to be where we are." But then we beat them, and it was quite. It was a good night.
That was a fantastic night, yeah. And then in the summer, the change of manager happens. Brian leaves, and Alan Ball comes in. And obviously, he kind of oversees a real period of decline, Alan Ball. Looking back, and the accusation was that he was just a friend of yours and that you'd taken him on as like an old pals act. What's the story?
First and foremost, there was no old pals act between Ball and myself, apart from when we played for England, we were mates and pals and everything like that. But on the football field, we sort of dislike one another, and we'd always been the same. And when we played cricket in the Bolton League together, we were always sort of hated one another's guts, and I used to try and knock his head off when I was bowling at him and things like that. It was very, very highly competitive. The problem was this. That at the end of the season, we had a dinner at the Midland Hotel, which we'd had 2 years before, which to bring everybody together, happy and wise, And it was called An Evening with the Blues. And Brian couldn't attend it because he was down at the league managers meeting down at Lilleshall. One of the mates of one of the directors at Manchester City, who was a horrible sod, right, told Malcolm Allison that there's a chance that Brian Orton will get sacked this summer. And this was totally wrong because we were quite happy with it to go on. We hadn't got a board meeting planned for about 6 weeks, and he told Malcolm this, and Malcolm at that time was struggling a bit, you know. He sold the story to the Sun for £3,000. So it's in the Sun and followed by the other red tops that Brian Orton's going to get sacked. So he rang me up from Lilleshall, effing and jeffing and everything, and he was annoyed. And okay, well, fair enough, he should be, but it's nothing to do with me. It's nothing to do with anybody from on the board apart from this one sleazebag who everybody will know who I'm talking about, but still, right. So he rings me up, effing and jeffing and everything like that. He said, "I want to see you." So I said, "Okay then." So what do you want to see me about? He said, "I've had enough." He said, all these rumours about me being fired and boom, 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 boom. I want it all sorted out. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah. I said, okay, I'll see you at my house, because he'd only come from Lilleshall to Wilmslow. I'll see you at my house in an hour. So I rung up the board. I explained everything to him, and they just said, well, if that's his attitude, let him go. So he came and he sat down and he said, what's the situation? I said, the situation is this, Brian. I spoke to all the directors, and they're unanimous and say you can go, you can leave, and give us your address of your lawyer and everything like that, and letting the sorts and compensation out, and that's it. And thanks very much. I couldn't do anything else about climb down and say, give him a kiss and say, please, Brian, don't leave. You know.
Yeah.
And it all started by that sleazebag at the evening for the Blues.
Leaking the story. So there was no intention on your part then to actually get rid of Brian Orton? You
No,
felt he was doing a decent job?
Because what we'd have done, we'd have called a meeting as soon as the season finished, right, and done it then, within a week, and it's done. We've got the summer to actually get a new manager. So anyway, the next problem arrives by another famous man in Manchester who applies for the manager job.
Who's that?
I can't tell you because it's. I wouldn't tell you. I can't tell you. I'm sorry. And so he kept me on the hook for about 3 or 4 weeks, and so we're now moving into June, early June, and he was a big friend of Colin Barlow's. And I said to Colin, what's going on? So he said, he came back and he said, I can't do it. I can't tell the chairman I'm going to leave, you know. And everything. And I said, what? You can't? He said, no. Oh, I said, why did you not tell me this 4 weeks ago? Well, he said, I've been having a lot of sleepless nights and this, that and the other. He said, I can't, I really can't. So I'm now in the deepest mire I've ever been in. I rung up Bawley. And I said, because he just had a good season, I think Southampton finished 6th, and it was like, I got a friend of mine to speak to Matt Letizia to ask him how was Bawley doing and everything like that. Matt Letizia was full of it. He said he's very, very good, you know. And so I did as much inquiry. So I rang Bawley, and he said, I'm just off to Ascot, you know. I said, well, just have a think about this one before you get down there and drink some champagne and ring me back to say if you're interested with. And I knew what he was on at Southampton. He was getting very small wages, you know. So I said, have a think about it, and I'll, ring me back. But don't leave it longer than a day or so. So he came back. He said, I'll come and see you. He said, I could be interested. I think he'd had a word with Leslie, his wife, who was from the north, you know, from Farnworth, near Bolton. And so that's how it came about, that Alan came. He helped me out of deep hole, right? And if you ask Matt Letizia today, you can ring him up, and any of the City fans can ring him up. They can ask him when he's on TV, who's the best manager he's ever played for. Matt Letizia will say Alan Ball. Now, why can he be the best manager that Matt Letizia's ever played for, and yet he got so many of the older end of the players at Manchester City who couldn't stand him?
Why was that? What was wrong? What went wrong? Because it clearly did go wrong under Ball, didn't it? That was That was kind of the
well, because
the start of the real
he
decline.
he would not be buggered about by people who wanted to please themselves. There was an hardcore of 3 or 4 or 5 players who thought they ran the club and owned the club.
Yeah.
And so he rowed with him, and I pleaded with him. I said, Alan, however much they rub you up the wrong way or anything like that, just bide your time. Don't say a word to them or anything like that, or pacify them or anything like that. And I said, the only time you criticise any of them is when they've left. So he said, all right, And then he started to do all right, and then he got very, very critical of them. And he said, they're all multimillionaires. He said, I can't make an impression on them, And I think he got fed up of them. And I think it was a standoff by both sides, which eventually finished up where, that I had to sack him.
He got off to an awful start and never recovered. Really, was the
yeah,
way
but then he had a
out.
decent run. He
did have a decent run, but it was a bit too late, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So City go down on the last day of the season.
Yeah.
That famous Liverpool game, the 2-2.
We went to I asked all the team to go to the social club on that Sunday morning afterwards, Right, so we all went, and all the first team players turned up and everything like that. And I heard one senior player say to the other senior player, right, come on, we better go and see these sub. That's the fans. And I thought, there's something wrong badly at this club. And when you think what Alan Ball had to put up with them, and you hear a senior player say to another player that, you know that he's had problems with them. Because even half-decent people don't say things like that.
So how did that culture come about, do you think? Was it just a collection of the wrong players being signed?
Collection of wrong players being given bigger contracts for doing nothing. Yeah. Which happened just before I came. That was Peter Swales' way of punishing me.
Leaving players on big contracts and then you had to deal with it. Yeah. So Alan Ball lasts until August of the 96 and City haven't started particularly well. Asa Hartford takes over for a short period as caretaker and then Steve Coppell comes in. Now, I remember Franny, even as a kid, I was only 12, 13 at this time, I remember thinking, finally, after a turbulent little period, he's the man, because his record was good. He seemed like a bit of a forward-thinking manager, and I thought he was the right appointment.
I couldn't believe it. I interviewed him for the job, and we talked about everything, and he said yeah, and everything was in the garden good. He had a very, very good contract. We always paid our players well, and we paid our managers well. And everything was going fine, and all of a sudden I got a phone call, and it was late at night, and he said, "Oh, it's Steve here." I said, "Yeah." He said, "What's up with you?" "I don't feel too good." I said, "Well, get yourself to the doctor then." And then the conversation went on like that. "No," he said, "I think I'd better come up and see you." I said, "Well, I'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. So he came up and he came to my house, and he was shaking and gibberish, and I said, "What's wrong with you?" I thought he'd had something, "I can't face it." I said, "You can't face what?" He said, "This job." I said, "You've only been here 4 weeks, what's wrong with you?" "Well," he said, it's just not for me. Yeah. And this went on and everything like that. And anyway, we eventually had to call a press conference and tell everybody that he was leaving. And I didn't know what to say. I honestly didn't know what to say, because here he is with a new contract, everything like that, And I just said to him, "I'll tell you what I'll do. We'll go down the ground, we'll do the press conference. I'll get Don, my driver, to run you to wherever you go. But wherever you go, you tell me where you're going," because I was frightened. Yeah. I was frightened he was going to do something to himself, because he was in tears, he was shaking, he was. So, anyway,
he was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Basically,
it's certainly nothing could have happened at our club, because I'll tell you what, we never saw him.
Yeah,
he only came up on a Monday morning and stayed till Thursday, then left the rest of them to Steve Coppell, and then met him at wherever they were playing. But there was some rumour about his marriage or something like that, and
Why was that? Just go back to that. Why was he only there that short? Had you come to an arrangement with him that for the initial period he could manage from distance? And
No, I'd come to an agreement to say, well, if you want to look for houses, etc., well, all you can, and just providing you prepare the team right, and that's all you need to do. I didn't want to put him under any pressure whatsoever.
Yeah,
and. I just couldn't believe it. So eventually, when we do the press conference, everybody criticises me for destroying his image and his well-being and his personality and everything like that. So he said he was leaving, and he said, I'll go abroad. I said, where are you going? He said, I might go and see a friend of mine in Manhattan. And I'm thinking, oh no, if he jumps off that bloody bridge there, there's going to be hell to play. Yeah. I was afraid. So I said to Don, drive him, take him wherever he wants. So he went, and then we had the rest of the day and everything like that, trying to get over this and one thing and another. So I got a call from Don at 5 o'clock. He said, where did he go? Did he go to Heathrow or something like that, or, Gatwick? No, he said he went to his mother's in Widnes. I said, what? He says he's gone to his mother's in Widnes. Can you understand how as a normal, intelligent man, I have to put up with this nonsense? Yeah. I've got a letter from him, really, because I said I'll pay you some compensation for what you've done and everything like that. And he wrote me a very nice letter for looking after him. He said, "You're very nice to." He said, "You don't have to send me any compensation at all."
Because he knew he hadn't been able to deliver on the job.
I don't know what is wrong with him. Nobody ever knows whether he got problems off the field. I don't know. Anyway, in the spring, I'm playing in the PFA golf tournament down in South Wales. Who goes marching by on the fairway about 50 yards from me, with his golf cup on and his bag on his back, and waving, "Hi, Franny!" I thought, who's that? And somebody was with me, say, "Steve Coppell." Oh, I said, for God's sake, let's miss him out.
He actually managed only 6 games. Now, Asa Hartford, who had been the caretaker just before him, did 8. So that's how short his stint was, and it really was a shocker. When I still remember it to this day. When I remember the press conference that you're talking about.
You're telling me it's a shocker.
Yeah.
How do you think I felt? How do you think I felt? Because everybody's saying what a wonderful appointment Steve Coppell is, and this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden it turns out to be the. Do you wonder I didn't jump off the bridge in Manhattan?
Then Phil Neal did a little caretaker
Frank
spot.
Clark came.
Then Frank
Clark came over the Christmas period because we met him at. I went to Barbados for Christmas, and I met him with David Bernstein at a hotel at Heathrow Friday night before I flew out, and we offered him the job. And he said, "Well, I'll let you know within 3 or 4 days." Yeah. And so he took the job, and that's how Frank became the manager.
What was appealing about Frank Clark? Because I can't find many things that were appealing about Frank Clark. What kind of stood out to you and thought he could be the man for the job?
2 or 3 people recommended him to me, and then I thought, well, he's got Alan Hill with him, who was Cloughie's left-hand man or right-hand man, call him what you want. Well, Peter Taylor was his right-hand man, his left-hand man, but he was with Cloughie, and he was a good guy, Alan Hill. He used to come down to my house and give me a report every 2 or 3 days, Frank Clark, although he only lived 400 yards from me, never came to my house to see me or anything like that. We invited him for dinner just to chat about things and how's the training going, or, is there anything, you can get through which you don't have time to do in the daytime.
Why do you think that is?
Alan said to me, he said, he won't come. He said, because he thinks you will know a lot more about football than him. He said, and that's why he won't come.
So that's not a great place for the manager to be in, is it, really, thinking in that way?
No. Anyway, we start off the next season, so we sign 1 or 2 players and everything like that.
I've got to ask you about the classic signing of this period was Lee Bradbury, who famously went down as one of the worst signings in the club history.
I was down in Portugal, and I was renting this house for about 3 weeks break and everything like that, and then Frank rings me up. "Chairman, we've got a player we'd like to sign." Oh, I said, "Oh, good, I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Lee Bradbury from Portsmouth." And I had heard about him, he had scored a few goals, Oh, I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Well, we think we should buy him." I said, "How much is he?" He said, 3 million. I said, "He must be pretty good." Because in those days, 3 million was quite, He said, "Yeah, he is." And everything. I said, "Now, has everybody seen him? Is everybody happy? The scouts and everything like that, and the reports, does everything stack up?" Yeah, he said, me and Richard, that was Richard Money, was his name, think that he could be the next Alan Shearer. I thought, that sounds good. I said, Alan, see him, Alan. And he said, yeah, he's seen him, and the scout down there had seen him, and they all give glowing reports. And so I said, okay then. I said, well, to ask them. So he came back and he said, they need another 250,000. I said, what's that for? He said, well, when he's played 25 games, we'll have to pay another 250,000. I said, what's that for? And I found out it was a payment to somebody who was working at the club at Portsmouth. So I said, provided it's legitimate and it's above board, I said, we'll do it. He said, yeah, it is, yeah. I said, okay then, right, we'll do that. So we sign him. So I go to, he trains and everything like that. I go and watch him training. And then I didn't go to training very much, but then I went to, we had a match at Burnley.
Pre-season game.
Right, a pre-season game. I thought, right, I'm going to play the game for him. I.e., I'm going to put myself inside his shirt and do exactly what I would do wherever the ball is on the pitch and think what would him. So he actually scored 2. One was a bad back pass and something else which was innocuous, And so we won 3-2, I think 3-1, something like that. So I got home and I walked in and Jill said to me, good result? I said, no. I said, it wasn't. I said, it sounds like a good result. I said, it wasn't. I said, we didn't play that well, So I went and sat in the lounge and everything like that. And I got the sulks on me, which is very unusual for me. And she said, come on, what's up? She said, how did the new signing go? I said, honestly, love, I said, I can't see him being a good player. I said, he never set foot inside their 6-yard box all day, and we put plenty of pressure on. His positional player is dire. I said, he doesn't know how to get the ball, And I said, he's running around, and I said, I don't see anything. So she said, have another glass of red wine, it might do you good. So anyway, I wasn't wrong, because we about 4 or 5, 6 weeks later, we drew Blackpool in the League Cup at Main Road, and it became a penalty shootout. And who's to take the winning penalty for City but Lee Bradbury? And he skied it straight over the crossbar into the Platt-Lane stand. And I thought, well, that isn't it now. But it's £3.5 million.
A significant amount of money.
How many goals did he score when he's left us? Not very many. Because he couldn't have gone upwards. He'd definitely gone downwards. And, then you start to think to yourself, this is getting beyond a joke. You got aggravation from players, you got aggravation from managers, you got aggravation from people spending money on people who are just not worth it. And it in the end, it just got me down, and I thought, the sooner I get out of this, the better it is, because there's no end to all this torture.
But your last managerial appointment, because obviously Frank Clark goes because things don't work out again. Your last appointment is Joe Royle. Now, you and Joe don't work together for a long time because obviously you leave. But that was a good appointment because Joe Royle was the right man at the right time, and City went on to do some good things under Joe Royle, and he kind of helped restore the club.
Joe, and Willie Donaghy.
Willie Donaghy, everyone says is a great
coach.
Old
servant of the club, came, right? We'd have taken Joe and Willie 5 years early if they'd been available, but they worked as a team, as a two, and they could have always had the job. But the thing is that they took over and they brought in a certain way of playing. It was a bit Route One-ish, but he believed in big players and crossing the ball and getting headers in and challenging and pressurising and everything like that. And it worked for him, and well done, Joe. Most
City fans see the signing of Kincladze as one of the best, certainly of your era. Now, you were the one who actually spotted him, weren't you? If I remember rightly, he played in a game against Wales and lobbed Neville Southall, and you'd seen this.
Yeah, and I spoke to Jerome Anderson about it. I said, get me the video of it. Yeah. It was the worst video I'd ever seen. It was crackling and everything like that, but you could see the guy was brilliant. Yeah. And I sent Jimmy Frizzell down to watch him, And he came back, he said, he is some player. He said, if you got the orchestra, this guy could conduct it. And so we bought him for £1 million. And he was a very, very, very talented player.
Unbelievably so, yeah.
Maybe he came at the wrong time. Maybe he was playing with the wrong players. But you can't blame him for everything that went wrong.
No, absolutely not.
Because let me tell you this as well. 2 years later, Jim Smith is in trouble at Derby, and he said, I've got a chance of signing Georgie Kinclads. He rung me up. He said, Franny, shall I do it? He said, because we could go down. He said, what shall I do? I said, sign him, Jim. I said, because he will win you games you can't win. He'll get you a point when all is lost. I said, that's the type of player. Just play 4-4-1 and let him go anywhere he wants. And give him plenty of encouragement and get the rest of the team to play with him, and he'll save you. And he did.
I mean, as a fan at the time, I remember thinking he's the only thing worth watching Some weeks where there was, the playing staff was so poor that he made it worth going. Yeah. All I would say is that speaking to... I spoke to Paul Walsh recently about Kincladsey, and I spoke to Joe Royle recently about Kincladsey, and both of them say the same thing in the sense that he wasn't the right player at that time. Now, obviously, he came in as when City were a Premier League team, so that's different.
But full marks to Joe, because Joe said to me, he's a circus act, and but Joe had his way of playing football, and I've got my way of seeing football. I see my way of playing football the way that City play today. I'd see it skill, ability, speed. That's how I see it. I don't see big men running up and down, umping the ball and knocking 7 bells out of one another. And granted, Joe was right in doing what he did, but in the great area of football, I believe football should be played by footballers.
And City, the managers should have found a way of getting Kincladsey in there that it wasn't detrimental to the overall team.
Frank Clark and Richard Money said, we'd like to have a word with you. And I thought, Frank wants to speak to me, what's this? So I said, yeah, what do you want, Frank? He said, Richard and he'd been there 7 or 8 months, Frank. He said, Richard and I want to know what's Gio's best position. I said, well, you've been working with him for 6 or 7 months, and you've seen him play. Well, he said, we don't know what his best position is. I said, just play. He's libre, he's free, like they say in Europe. You play 4-4-1, and he just goes anywhere. I said, if you wanted to waste his talent, you could put him on the wing. Let him play on the left wing, but you'd be wasting his talent.
I remember obviously the goal against Southampton was one of the great goals. I think it's the greatest goal I saw live at Main Road, and his performance in the 3-3 against Newcastle was probably the best individual performance I saw at Main Road as well. And he did bring a lot of colour to that time.
And he got a lot of stick that night against Newcastle. There was about 4 or 5 who were trying to flatten him, you know. Yeah, but still,
he was a very exciting player to watch. There was a few other Georgians came in during your tenure as well. What's the story behind the influx of them?
We saw them play. They drew England in the Euros, and they played England in Georgia. I think they drew there, England, and they beat England beat them 2-1 at Wembley, and both Shellier and the other descendant, what's he called?
Shkidadze.
Yeah. They both played Alan Shearer and Teddy Sheringham off the park. Right? They really held them and played them well. And I thought, well, they're not expensive, these, and it's a bit like signing people from Scotland. They're tough. The good guys, the tough guys, and they really wanted to do well. And so that's why we signed the two of them. As the centre of the defence. And if you were looking for an actual performance to underline, if they kept Sheringham and Alan Shearer down to 1 goal, I think they scored one of them that night, they're not bad players.
So how does it come about that you leave? I know you were saying you've had enough. There was a lot of pressure on you, a lot of pressure on your family. What's the final moment where you think, do you know what, I'm going to get out of here?
Well, I just thought I have to get out because I'm going no, because every week there is a crisis one way or another, and if there isn't one, somebody will create one, and it was as though they were just trying to, which they were trying to get me to leave. I was being
other board members, you mean?
Yeah. They were doing awkward things and putting me in awkward positions, and some which were not very nice. And I thought, well, I don't need this anymore. So I decided, I'll keep my sanity, I'll keep my pride, I'll get out of the game, and I'm done with it.
Colin Bell was working.
He was part-time.
Part-time.
Colin used to meet their parents when they came along, and then he'd say hello to them and everything like that, and he'd bring them to the match on a match day, and I would go and meet him, and Mike, some of you would go and meet him and everything like that, and he was doing a bit of coaching with him, and that was about it, really.
And he left during your time, and he feels a little bit bitter about that. Is there anything to his
Colin
complaints?
feels bitter about it because he had to have some excuse for why he was asked to leave. I didn't ask him to leave. It was none of my doing. I stepped down from the board that day and I put the chair in charge of David Bernstein. I said, I can't sit here and hear a teammate of mine, a friend of mine, somebody we've done so many things together, criticised. I said, I must leave, and I'll come back and I'll uphold whatever decision you come to. So I left the board. I came back 10 minutes later. Frank Clark was there, Alan Hill was there, and he said that David Bernstein said, we've decided to get rid of all the staff at Platt Lane. And I said, what about Colin? He said, and him as well. I said, well, look, this is a very delicate situation. I'm going to Jersey to see the Jersey Football Club, fan club, because it was the international matches the following week, so we got a week off. And I said, leave the actual message that what we will pass to Colin. I will do it, and I'll have a think while I'm away what we can do and how we can find him another position at the club where he'll feel comfortable. And I left that board meeting with those words. And I'm in Jersey on Monday, and somebody rang me up from the Manchester Evening News, or got my number, and told me that Colin had been sacked. I couldn't believe it.
So there's obviously been a misunderstanding there on his part.
On whose part?
Colin's, because he seems
Oh,
to...
it's a great misunderstanding on his part, but there should not have been a misunderstanding from David Bernstein or Alan Hill, because Alan Hill said, I sacked him. I said, well, you'd no right to. He said, well, I was told to.
It strikes me that your time as chairman on the field, results didn't go well. Revenue increased massively. The club became more commercially savvy because they never were before, and even I recognise that as a youngster. You know, the club shop, it expanded, and we seem to be doing more in those areas.
Well, what we did, we took the social club. We asked Greenhouse to let us have it and turned it into a shop to where we could sell replica products. Whereas we had a shed before, which earned the club £60,000 a year, would you believe, for all the replica shirts sold. The club got £60,000. We moved into the social club, and it suddenly shot up to the club made a profit of about £150,000. Profit, not turnover.
Obviously, you agreed the deal to move to the stadium.
Yeah, and by
stadium.
that time, Sir Howard Bernstein had come on the scene. You know, it was and Richard Lees, they were very, very important, because to actually do the stadium right and make sure everything was done right, you know, there had to be a lot of liaison between us. And what we wanted to do is turn the stadium car park into a park and ride when the tram system was in, to go into the centre of Manchester and back, where you could park your car for maybe £5 a day and pay 50p you know, because I was always mindful about the maintenance of the cost of the stadium. You see, at Main Road, the maintenance costs could be 150 grand a year on a good year. But if you've got a new stadium and all of a sudden it wants painting or something like that, could be talking about 4 or 5 million, you know, or 2 million or something like that. You don't know what you know, you're talking about it painted inside out, you know, and I was always mindful of that.
There was growth off the field under your watch, wasn't there? City became a more professional
Yeah, well, I mean, so when I took over, the turnover was about 4 million, but I tell you, it was about 33 million when I left. And it was rapidly growing, you know, and the great influx of land made available to the club from Manchester City Council, which in return the owners built on it, and it was absolutely a wonderful, wonderful thing for Eastlands. If you look at Eastlands now, if you look at all that side of Manchester, full marks to everybody who's had anything to do with it, but more full marks to our current owners for what they've done, because nobody in the world could have done as well as they've done.
So this current City team then, is it better than the ones you played in?
Yeah. They've got better players, more better players than we had, we had players who were not quite as good as some of these. We had players who were as good as some of these. But if you were saying how many of our team would you put into this team we've got now at present, you'd be struggling to get 4, I would think. Maybe 5.
Thank you so much to Francis for inviting me over and for being so open and honest throughout that conversation. If you liked what you heard, make sure you subscribe wherever it is you're doing your listening, and we've got plenty more for you. I've been speaking to the key architects of our back-to-back promotion campaigns, Andy Morrison and Joe Royle. One of our finest academy products, Paul Lake, former star player and then club director Dennis Chewett, and a man central to our post-2008 success, Brian Marwood. They're all available now, wherever it is you do your podcast listening. And don't forget to check out mancity.com or download the official Man City app for more content such as this. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and hopefully you'll join me again soon.